Thank you, Stella. Excellent presentation. I can see you as a candidate, a successful one someday. So let me start the questioning here, and we have 5-minute rounds. Some of our members had to go to the floor to vote, and they'll be coming in and out. There's no sign of disrespect. It's just the nature of our lives here. Let me start and say to Mr. David, it seems not the only issues involved here, but the two dominant issues that continue to reappear are questions involving the Equality Act and religion and the Equality Act and sports, particularly women's sports. So let me start first with the religion issue, if I might. I respect very much Pope Francis. I must respectfully disagree with the announcement that he made Monday related to same-sex unions. The Pope made a pronouncement through the Vatican that the blessing of homosexual unions cannot be considered licit. He has stated before his position on people of different sexual orientation. There is some cloud, I guess, over exactly where the church stands. But when it comes to marriage equality, what the Pope has said is that the Catholic Church will not bless that union. I want to ask you, Mr. David, there are similar religions that take similar positions. What do you believe the passage of the Equality Act would do? Would it change that decision by the church or threaten it as you know it?
Thank you, Chair Durbin. The answer is no. The Equality Act would not change any pronouncements that are issued by religious institutions. Religious institutions are what they are, religious institutions. And they can determine the standards for inclusion. They can determine the structure of their churches or their synagogues or their mosques. The Equality Act doesn't change that. The Equality Act does not affect how religious institutions function. That is very different than institutions that actually provide public accommodations, institutions that are open to the public and are providing goods and services to the public. In those cases, yes, I as a Black man or I as a gay man should be able to walk into a store and not face discrimination. That is very different than whether or not I would have the right to marry in a church. I don't have that right, and the Equality Act would not change that.
So let me, if I can, ask, first preface my question to Stella Keating. I'm certain, and I want to make it clear on the record, I don't want to speak for others, but I think I might be. There is no one who condones sexual harassment or sexual assault under any circumstances, period. And there's no intent to weaken those standards by anyone involved in this debate here. But a great deal has been said about the impact of this law on people in their high school, college years, particularly those who participate in sports. Well, you're the only expert on the panel, Ms. Keating, when it comes to the high school years, because you're a high school sophomore yourself. And I'd like to have your reaction to this point about transgender women participating in sports. And also, if you would reflect for a moment, as your testimony did, on the real concerns you have beyond that high school experience as to what you might face in college.
Thank you for your question, Senator. I honestly am not a very sporty person, and I don't participate in very many sports. But what I can tell you, though, is that last year, actually, in my freshman year, before COVID hit, I was planning on joining my girls' bowling team and at my high school. And I wanted to do it because I wanted to just hang out with my friends. A lot of my friends were on this bowling team, and I really wanted to just hang out with them. And that was basically it. And I can tell you that, excuse me, I can tell you that majority of the transgender people who join sports just want to hang out with their friends. And that's basically it. And for beyond, high school and going into college, the Equality Act will also really help me feel safe to whatever college I go to, because there is a huge chance that I could fall in love with another college that's outside of my state. And if the Equality Act is not being enacted, then I won't be protected there, and then I can't go to that college. And so the Equality Act will let me attend any college that I'd like to.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask Mr. David, Ms. Schreier in her testimony said gay and transgender Americans are living today with less fear and stigma than any point in American history. Could you reflect on that statement and the experience or information you've gathered in terms of discrimination and harassment, even violence facing LGBTQ Americans?
Yes, absolutely. 2/3 of LGBTQ people in this country report experiencing discrimination. Last year alone, we had 44 transgender women who were killed in this country, more than any other year in recorded history. So I appreciate the contention that LGBTQ people are now living free from fear of discrimination and violence, but that does not reflect the facts. The facts are very clear that as LGBTQ people living in this country, we live with fear. We live not knowing if we can walk home safely at night. And that's reflected in the fact that 44 transgender women, most of them Black and brown, were killed in this country last year, more than any other year in recorded history. And it's worth repeating, because I think as we talk about the Equality Act, we have to make sure that our policies are driven by facts, not by fear. And unfortunately, a lot of the information that we've seen advanced is misinformation about the Equality Act. The Equality Act does not in any way undermine the rights of others. It simply provides legal protections to LGBTQ people. And as I've stated in my opening statement, again, worth repeating, and as Stella said, in 29 states in this country, we face discrimination. That means I could face discrimination getting into a taxi or into a car service. I could face discrimination going into a retail store. I could face discrimination serving on a jury. That's real. And that is happening every single day to LGBTQ people. That is why we're asking to pass the Equality Act so that we are treated in the same way as everyone else. Ask yourselves, is it fair that I'm protected from discrimination as a Black man, but if I walk into a room as a gay man, I'm not protected? As Stella said, that is not the country, and those are not the ideals that support our democracy. And that is why we're fighting for the Equality Act.
Thank you very much, Senator Grass.